Being a TK e-commerce seller turned out to be taking how big a week? 300.0 TK's US e-commerce belongs to the new step of dividends?
Fruit is the industry-level dividend. Everyone has the opportunity to look at all the cross-border e-commerce platforms on the market. Now only TikTok, this flow of mining.
Are you in a sustained growth phase, or is it a blip?
The ground is definitely not a flash in the pan in the US. The average large cap GPM is about $80. At least the GPM can reach 1,500 yuan. There is still room for triple growth Xiaobai, so that there are the resources capital, which is not the decisive factor.
Now, TK's US e-commerce, is it part of our new step dividend? Is it an industry-level dividend? Why can you be so adamant that it is a dividend?
He does. Traffic dividend here in the current market is also very difficult to find, and TikTok traffic is also cheap, and such large volume you do e-commerce traffic cost is very critical if you want to directly off into your project, off into the company, throughout the market. All cross-border e-commerce platforms or social media platforms, you'll find that only the TikTok is a traffic digging ground.
Is the flow of digging the bottom of the, as a former TK official, a lecturer in the TK e-commerce in the next 3 years of growth? Is it a sustained growth stage, or is it a flash in the pan?
It may not necessarily continue to grow, but it's definitely not a flash in the pan. From a data perspective, the average GPM in the US is about 80, which is the GDP generated by 1-0 exposures. In fact, compared to domestic Shake Talk or mature platforms, it's still a long way from 80, which is only 500 yuan, but at least the GPM can reach 0 to 15, 0 yuan, and there's still room for a threefold increase in the GPM. GPM stands for the value of the individual user, and at the same time, TikTok's e-commerce content may account for less than 2%. TikTok's e-commerce content probably accounts for less than 2% of the total, but in China, Shaken has already accounted for 8% of the total, and from a bottom-up logic point of view, it will have room for growth.
Now, many do cross-border e-commerce sellers to do the US TK interest in e-commerce, and Refirer, he did not do cross-border e-commerce like the year everyone has the opportunity to do it.
We put the coverage to all people. Certainly there are some people who are not suitable now. Ordinary people can do TikTok e-commerce. What is meant by ordinary people? He really has little resources, have not entered the TikTok this industry, and even do not even understand the e-commerce funds are not particularly sufficient to want to start low cost. Maybe the only thing he has is that he is the labor force of the person so that people are there. Resources and funds are not the determining factors. Determining factor is that you have no execution, of course, not necessarily all in, but to make this thing to do a week did not see the results, give up, not go on. The decisive factor is whether or not you have the ability to execute, of course, not necessarily all in, but you have to make this thing a week, did not see the results, and then give up. Not on the want to enter this track to start their own business without a clue, to look for a TikTok industry company. You first go to work to
learn directly now. Which population is more suitable to do TK and e-commerce has done?
The cross-border e-commerce itself has knowledge of this matter. Whether you have said Amazon or Facebook or Google can be the second category in the domestic, have done social media e-commerce, have done short video e-commerce, to do jittery fast hand and then want to go to see understand the e-commerce, have done the domestic social media. You know the content. There are also some of the traditional foreign trader factory teams, some of the factory bosses, because they are to be not as good as in the past to do want to go. Expansion want to find a second growth curve, an entrepreneurial team. In fact, TikTok now gives many entrepreneurial team opportunities. TikTok, it is not mature, will give you time to let you accompany it to grow together, whether it is barley or wheat. In fact, in the TT have a growth point, TT.
Now, TK e-commerce and the traditional cross-border e-commerce platform, its biggest.
What is the difference between IK Talk is the form of traffic and content display. Traditional e-commerce platforms, from the consumer point of view, is the decision-making chain is different. Let's say a customer goes to Amazon to buy something. First of all, its decision-making chain is I want to buy this thing. I go to the search and then see a good buy interest in the e-commerce. The customer in the moment when he opened the TikTok, he did not want to buy this thing. Just swiped, buy the supply of fried from a merchant's perspective. The form of traffic acquisition and capability items are different. Like Amazon itself is a big supermarket which gathers a lot of traffic. We just open a store in the supermarket and there will be traffic. It is the platform that pours the traffic to you. Of course, TikTok is also a platform that has traffic, but whether it is a live broadcasting or a short video, it requires you to be able to have the ability to create the content. For merchants, the capability item is the ability to create the content.
Different contrast. These two traditional e-commerce, interest e-commerce, they will coexist for a long time, or will they fight to the death?
Fighting is a different form of domestic. Taobao has Jingdong, has Pinduoduo, has in enhancing some share more, is coexisting that.
Which social media will also do interest e-commerce become today's rivals?
From the perspective of the overseas market, like Instagram's Reels, YouTube's YouTube Shot, because their display forms or short videos are indeed some competitors directly in front of us, which is a good thing for our business. If TikTok is a dominant player, your risk will be very high. Businessmen, including whether it is the risk of the platform, risk policy risk, or higher level risks someday. TikTok, you really don't let us do it, right? There are other platforms to choose from. What is the underlying logic is short video and live this trend in the, so there is TikTok rather than TikTok to have this trend of a local American company. So TikTok, you say it's okay. In the end, will it one day be wiped out for merchants?
What doesn't matter too much is that you need to capitalize on the trend.